wanted to talk a little bit about augmentative alternative communication systems like sign language, picture systems, anything like that is an alternative to using talking. Many clinicians, therapists, families choose to use augmentative or alternative communication when spoken words are difficult for kids. So they do move into using these tools as ways to facilitate language. And so a lot of parents, there's many different theories about it, and one of the questions that I saw posted in a group, so I'm going to sort of swipe this question as a way to sort of talk about this issue, because there's quite a lot of discussion around this topic of alternative communication. The question was, this mom had posted that her child's 2.5. Evidently, she had a conversation with her speech therapist about using alternative communication, and the speech therapist kind of gave it a thumbs down. You know, that's sort of what I interpreted. And the mom was concerned because the mom was really interested in getting this system. And I have moms in my program who are using alternative communication. Some of them are using PECs. Some of them are using rapid prompting method. Some of them are using signs. Some of them are using sort of a combination. In fact, I have one mom whose little guy is inventing his own. He's like picking up toys and starting to use them to communicate. So there are definite, there is a definite place in the conversation for using alternative augmentative communication. The thing about this alternative communication that I'm talking about is sometimes parents feel like that's the thing to use to get their kiddo to start talking. However, it can sabotage, like it can come back in a negative way. The thing about late talkers is they get very good at nonverbal communication because speech is hard. And the nonverbal communication that they get good at usually is made up themselves. They may learn from all the different things that they're learning. Maybe you're trying signs. Maybe they're pointing. Maybe they're bringing you things. Maybe they're pushing you. Maybe they're screaming. Maybe they're using behaviors like meltdowns. Maybe they're tugging on hair. Maybe they, you know, all the different things that they're using to communicate. Those are all alternative communication methods. So anything that your child is using besides words to communicate, they're already using alternative communication systems. And so one of the theories is that because kids are good at using nonverbal language, if we give them a structured nonverbal way to communicate, they might actually glom onto that, and it's something everybody can understand, right? So when they start to use natural, or when they start to use this thing for communication, picture system, for example, or signs. Let's say they learn the sign for eat whenever they want to eat. Or they learn to hold their hand out, or they learn to say please, you know, more, the few basic signs that they learn. Let's say they learn to say more, and because they said more, they got something, it worked really well, so now they say more for everything. Or let's say your child learned to say thank you, because every time you give them something, you say thank you, because you want them to learn to say thank you. So now they use thank you to ask you, which is actually a verbal, like a talking, but it's not really a communication. See, the thing is, your kids are going to pick what's easiest. And if all the things that they're using are working for you, teaching them another nonverbal system is just shifting from one nonverbal system to another nonverbal system. And my theory about it is, if your child has the capability to produce speech, and you want to shift from your current nonverbal communication pattern into something that everybody can understand, my theory is, why don't we teach them speech, right? Why are we teaching them another method if we can teach them to use speech? it doesn't take very many criteria for a child to be able to learn to say words. Even kids with apraxia, even kids with tongue tie, they're gonna try to learn. But as long as we understand why and what's going on that's causing your child to be late talking in the first place, then we overcome that, and then teaching verbal speech is easy. So if your child has a tongue tie and they can't move their tongue, you have to fix that tongue tie, but then you can teach them natural language. If your child had ear infections and they couldn't hear for a while and you fix the ear infections, then you can teach them verbal language. So it doesn't make sense to sort of teach something else unless it's totally necessary. And that's where some alternative systems are really necessary. So if your child can't hear and hearing is inconsistent for them because of glue ear, or they can't hear because of a hearing loss, then we get them hearing the best they can. And then you might have to learn sign language. You might have to learn a computer system. Your child might have to learn writing. But just because your child learned those things first and they're working for them to communicate doesn't mean that you can't shift again over to verbal speech, but it is a shift. If you do feel like verbal speech is something that you want to facilitate for your child, it still is a process for you to move out of using that nonverbal communication system like the iPad system or whatever into verbal speech. And so what I do in my program is I help parents make the shift from whatever is the current now. And in many parents, it is a whole combination of things that are alternative to speech. And it happens because you have to know what your kiddo wants. And the older they get, the more complicated it is to try to read their mind, to figure it out. When they're babies, even when they're 2, it's pretty easy to understand what they want. There's only so many things that they've been exposed to in life that they could possibly want to choose from, and you know what they liked before, what they didn't like, or what kind of response you had previously, and you keep that in your data bank. And what happens is increasingly it becomes on the parent to be the device, the interpreter device for the child, because they're communicating with behavior, you're understanding what they want, guessing, watching, knowing what you know before, all of that. And so if you are considering using an alternative communication system, or if you are trying one now. So if you're in the middle of it, if you've been given a system by your therapist, if you're investigating a system, if whatever, what I recommend for you to do is understanding how it's working for you, if it's working for you. Because if it's a struggle to use this nonverbal communication system, and it's a struggle for your child to use words, then I posit to you, which struggle do you want to take on? Like, which thing do you want to do? So if it turns out that you are using a picture system, but it's becoming prohibitive, you know, like you've got pictures all over your house, or the book's too heavy, or there's a lot of words, or you find that it's working at the school and not at the house, that's not a system that's going to sustain for your child, right? If your child's using an iPad system, but it's still not functional in your household, right? Those things, if your child is, if you're trying to prompt for words like you can't have the cookies till you say cookies kind of thing, and that's not working, it's not fun, that's when you need a new strategy. You need to shift your strategy, because if it isn't fun, it isn't fun, and your child's not going to buy in. You're never going to be able to pressure your child into communication. You know this. As soon as you come at them with the learning, they go running the other direction. If that's happening to you, then you have to change. Your child's not going to change their attitude about it until you change how you're presenting that situation. And every family is different. That's why in my program, everybody gets a custom plan.